What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I am BDLM, coming with my buddy, aka Little Wheezy, aka Tornado, aka the Dust Devil, the Asthmatic Menace. That's all I got. J4Y, bringing you episode number 58 of our Dota On Demand podcast. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, breathing ain't easy, yo.
It's rough.
Sometimes,
but you got through it.
You'd think I had some kind of asthma problem, but in reality,
I'm the
it's
asthmatic.
actually you, and that's the ironic part there. But no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm full of oxygen tonight. I'm ready to go. Just ready to, as you're talking, not breathe and eat and chew my mic at the same time.
Hold your breath at all times while I'm speaking.
I'm just gonna turn blue, and you're like, and it's your turn to speak. Yeah, just go, depending on my shade of blue, that's when you can decide when I need to speak up.
Yes. I'll pause every once in a while, just let you get your 2 cents in. But yes, unfortunately we had some sound issues last time, but don't worry, we checked this time, so everything should be good. Our apologies. You'd think this many in, we'd have it down, but it's okay. It's just some room for improvement. But this week we actually have a great episode for you guys. It's one that I've been looking forward to for a while, and it sort of was born out of these 2 quotes I'm going to start this whole shebang off with. And this episode's pretty much just going to be like the first in a series of just how to watch Dota, what kind of things to take away from certain positions, certain item choices, why you might do this versus something else, really to try and help everybody sort of learn how to learn the game. And this episode is going to be about watching replays specifically, and then sort of going over some of those basic, well, why didn't my team do this questions. But the 2 quotes I wanted to give you guys, in true BLM fashion, I can only properly cite one of them. But the first was actually by a member of a sort of Tier 2 team. The team dropped one of their players, and everybody was kind of shocked about it. And the guy, very sort of aggressively or almost agitated sounding, goes and says, anybody that's watching games through streams, they're just watching it for whatever, they probably don't know why this happened. But anybody who actually watches the game, who actually pays attention, the people who buy the tickets, they understand exactly why this happened. And I kind of want to play that off against a quote that Icy actually made. One time he was sitting in a really long pause, and he was just talking about casting in general. And he says, it's kind of the job of the caster to take the numbers, to take all the sort of random things happening in a game, and weave them into a coherent story, such that a person who's never seen Dota can at least get something out of it, that they can sort of appreciate the story, the arc of what's going on. And so it's not just this person has 12 creeps and this person has 13 creeps, and now we're going to tell you some other random fact. So I guess just putting those together against one another, compare and contrast, which one do you like, which one don't you like, which one's your favorite? It's your turn. You can breathe.
You did go quite a handful there, but I think I like both points from both of them. I completely agree with the fact of people who have actually purchased these tickets and can go into the game and actually gain more, just so much more from it than compared to just watching, just like, let's say, just a stream from one of our casters. And also, I guess my number one thing about that is that a caster, especially depending on who it is, may only get you so much information per their cast. Some casters like to focus or harp on certain elements more than others do. Some don't. Some miss a lot of teamfight action, unfortunately, or have, unfortunately, not as good color commentators with them, so you're not going to truly understand what's going on. You're just going to visually see it and then be like, what, why, okay, and like not understand item choices, those kind of things. So, those elements need to get dove into more, and so I think just focusing on stream is not going to always be your best option at all. We can't always all afford tickets to every event, of course, so you're going to maybe have to pick and choose, which we'll maybe get into more later as well. But no, I definitely appreciate that. And as well as the story weaving element, I kind of like the way he put that. Actually, he was very poetic. It was very,
You know what?
very lovely.
I paraphrase, so I'm gonna steal that. That was mine. That
Oh, that
was.
was yours. Okay,
I mean,
well,
no, he said the idea, but you know what? I'm gonna say that I was the wordsmith behind that beautiful oration.
are you Kanye's
On
apprentice?
yes,
Okay, well, that's good to know. But yeah, honestly, uh, it's really is their job to kind of put it all together for you, and so and that's hopefully, like you said, what we're going to try to do today is just help yourself more or less to gain more from these viewing experiences than just face value.
yeah. I mean, because it's a thing I was gonna say when I was first thinking about this and how it sort of applies to even like you and me, because for a while we were trying to do casting, and I was thinking, well, something that we were guilty of sometimes was, I remember one game in particular where I was just like bedazzled by the ward placement and just how much it was able to tell the teams, and they were able to get successful ganks off and all this stuff. And for me, that game was just like all about the vision that they were able to get, and all about those sort of advantages they were able to get. And so that was the story that I wanted to tell and hope that people could take away from it. That doesn't say anything about who won their lanes individually, and what that says for the matchup and like all this stuff. And it's not like when I wanted to say it to myself, it was like we were guilty of, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I definitely think you need both that sort of ability to have the story, have that entertainment value, and then also have the really precise way of looking at games and really trying to understand what's going on. Because it's like pro athletes, they don't watch the sports broadcast; they watch the overhead camera view of just no sound and watching everything move around. And to me, that's sort of like what the tickets are akin to. I mean, they really give you the kind of control that you obviously lack if you're watching a stream. And the great thing about watching it in the client as well is that if you want, you can have your settings set up so that you can listen to the commentator, which is what I do, while having it set up for free camera. So I can go watch something else, go watch whatever I want to. If I want to pay attention to a 1v1 matchup, I can. And then also take in whatever the caster's saying. And sometimes that's going to be like awesome facts, like stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think of, like, oh yeah, Viper is a great counter to Lifestealer. And you're like, what? And that sort of thing. So maybe this is a good time to sort of get into how you actually go about watching games inside the client.
Yeah, especially for those who are not very familiar. So, yeah, sure, let's jump in. Do you want me to? How about you? Start.
Okay, I will. Well, I'll say, it's one of the things in just watching a stream that you sort of take for granted is just the fact that you get vision of everybody. And, me in particular, I think it's important that if you're trying to watch games, not only should you be like manipulating your settings and stuff, but I also think it's maybe good to start off by saying if you really are trying to like take things out of a game, you should probably watch them more than once. Day9, who we like to give a shout out to every once in a while, because I'm sure he watches every week to hear these. He in teaching people about StarCraft 2 would go, you need to watch games multiple times. You watch them once for the entertainment value, and then you watch them again to really try and take every little piece out of it that you can. When you get to the parts of the replay where something big's going to happen, maybe you slow it down and you look at the team fight closely, or you pause every once in a while to take a look at all the stats that are going on. But as far as just the settings and stuff, I free camera it. I'll put on a caster, a commentator if I really want to. Like I said, just try and take some information out of that. And then throughout the game, I'll switch vision back and forth to try and see exactly what it is teams are doing. And then if you have a big fight going, or you see like this crazy rotation from one team, I like to take it back and then see what they saw and say what information they have that made them think that they could go and get away with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously very, very in-depth, analytical, critical things, which is good to do for sure. But that might be for the more advanced viewer, per se. But yeah, definitely, I liked the way you were kind of describing in the beginning about what was I going to say? Oh, putting the whoever's doing the casting like through their Twitch channel, putting them in game, put their sound on. That way, you kind of can follow along with them. Especially like maybe if you're being kind of unobservant, if you're doing this free camera, which what you were saying, and I completely agree, you should be trying to focus on free cameras so you kind of get your own perspective of everything. But they can start shouting out a battle, and then you're like, oh, geez, I gotta go to bottom lane and check this out. But I definitely think free camera is the way to go for the most part, just because, yeah, okay, you can't be the laziest man on earth anymore. You have to actually do a little work and move the camera around yourself. So yeah, they're at that point. Sure, it's not as great, but if you're going to leave it on the spectator's view, all you're doing at that point, then you might as well watch it through their Twitch stream, because you're not doing yourself any extra favors. You're just literally watching it in high definition. So, I think you should definitely maximize your benefits of purchasing these tickets. That's one of the ways. The other is checking out the stats drop downs, as well as the gold and experience graphs, which you should definitely bind the keys if they haven't been, or they probably are default ones. I don't know. I have it bound specifically for when we did it back in the day. But the stats drop downs, that can be, there's quite a few of them actually. I believe it's 10. No, it's 8.
You
It's
put
9.
yourself.
It's 9. It's 9. It's fine. Close enough. Almost double digits. But
is that with or without fantasy points? Because that's the
that
stat
is
that
with
really matters.
fantasy scores. It's fantasy
There you go.
scores, actually, the technical name. But I would definitely say all 9 are not necessarily important. There's a few that are really core, critical ones that you should really maybe swap around with every now and then. Net worth, I'd say, is the number one. Oh, besides fantasy scores, excuse me. Fantasy scores number one. Then you go to net worth, and what this really does is see the distribution of where all that gold went to. Because when you look at like an overall gold graph, you see casters do it all the time. They pull up the experience graph and the gold graph, and they say, this team's ahead 2,000. Well, what does that really mean? 2,000 is just an arbitrary number. When you get the net worth down, now you really see who's worth what in the grand scheme of things. So sure, a team might be worth 2,000 ahead, but they could have 80% of their gold on one hero, and then now it means a whole different thing than if it was spread out evenly. So net worth's huge. Buyback status late game, really nice just to be able to pop in and know who can do what in a team fight. And then everything else more or less is, last hits and denies is probably the most popular one that's up there all the time, just because you want to know about creep score the most frequently.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head for a lot of the late game stuff. I mean, me personally, for the early game, I really like paying attention to hero level because, the difference between 3 and 4 and 4 and 5, 5 and 6 for some heroes is so dramatic, right? Like Viper, level 5, like holy crap, look out, because now the orb doesn't have the cooldown, and now you can just go crazy on somebody, or hitting 6 to get that ultimate. Or supports, if they're in an aggressive tri-lane, the single level difference is potentially huge, and so that's one that I like to have up early on. But yeah, of course, kill dash and assist is always fun to watch. But the last hits and denies I think is also really important, especially when you want to look at again in the early game scenario how certain lanes are matching up against others, how certain carries are able to farm against other carries. How worthwhile was it to send an aggressive tri-lane against the Phantom Lancer? Was he still able to get a good number of creeps? And that all also ties into that net worth towards the end of like you were saying. But yeah, I think those are also important things to look out for.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I think another thing that I actually really like is trying to go around the map, like as stuff is happening, as you're getting kills, as people are going on killing sprees and whatnot, really trying to pay attention to when you're bringing up the graphs and trying to figure out when meaningful changes are happening. Because of course I think you get the, every 10 minutes I'll bring up the gold graph, I'll bring up the experience graph and see what happened, but I definitely like to make a note to myself to, as soon as like a team fight breaks out, as soon as you lose 1 or 2 people, as soon as a tower goes down, you pause the game, you pop up the gold graph, you pop up the experience graph, and you say, okay, what just happened here? Sometimes you'll have those games, and they're actually some of the ones I enjoy the most, where you have a team that's just like all over the place, they're picking up kills left and right, and then there's this other team that just have to fall back, they can't even defend towers, they have to wind up turtling, and lo and behold, that team winds up winning. And we actually, even in some of our games that we were playing recently, sort of practicing up for our captain's mode, we wound up having a game where I was Naga Siren, I was level 5 at 20 minutes in, and we were sort of playing in the captain's mode mindset of, let's call shots, let's go around as a team and make all these decisions, and it kind of came up being, do we want to defend this tier 2? No, don't do it. We can't do it. We can't fight them right now. Just let it go. Well, how about this tier 2? No, we can't do it. We can't fight it. Let it go. How about this tier 2? No, we can't do it. We can't fight it. To the point where I think, everybody would have gotten, angry had we lost the game. Like, why don't we defend the tier 2s? But it winds up working out in the end because you start to realize, what those losses really were. Understanding, okay, yeah, they're getting this gold, but we're able to spread our team out. While they're grouped up as 5, we're able to get experience elsewhere. We're able to get gold elsewhere. And I think those kind of things are really important to watch out for, just, how those graphs wind up changing in reference to the events on the map. And then, too, when nothing's happening, what effects are you actually seeing in the game? Are teams able to spread out and get golden experience against a team that's huddled up? I think those are really big things to look out for.
Yeah, map objectives are kind of a funny thing, and they're sort of hard to evaluate, especially when you're in the heat of the moment. And that's why, like you said, it's good to have some kind of, maybe shot caller is a good way to put it. Someone who's got that knowledge to know, okay, in this situation, can we benefit more from doing something else completely? And like you were saying, like in our specific example, yeah, we obviously could benefit a lot more from either farming jungle or pushing another lane and getting it out there, because we weren't strong enough to match them in a team fight at that point. And it would have just been a slaughter, and we would have probably lost the tower on top of it. It would have just gone poor. Morale would have gone down. It would have just been a lot of negative on top of negative. So to be able to really observe that, and this is where watching these games, especially professional games, watching it happen in the real deal really allows you to kind of transpose it into your own games, into your own game logic. And I think that's what we're also trying to focus on here is how do we apply what we learn or what we see in the game to our own. Now, granted, yes, if you're playing in a pub, you're the only player you know, it's not going to work out that way. Yeah, you really can only do this with groups of 3 plus, I'd say, because if you can't control half your team, then yeah, you're not going to really be able to. You can apply some elements here and there, but there's only so much control you really have over the situation. So, that Bloodseeker who random to mid is still going to go 0 and 10, however much you know about the game. Either way, it's going to happen. So,
yeah, I think it's neat too. I mean, we kind of, I guess, have already gotten to like the diving into the actual game, but I mean, I think that's kind of neat. As far as personal knowledge goes, just trying to break down the drafts as best you can too, because there was an interview that Puppy did about drafting, and he was just sort of like, you're not just trying to build a team that you want, that you want to win. It's in part trying to bait the other team into picking something that you want to play against. And so I think it's really neat, sort of, even at that really early stage of the game, I'll pause, like, right after a certain set of picks, then right after the bans, right after the picks again. So you can kind of say, okay, this is what they banned out because they don't want to play against it. And, there are, of course, those heroes that are really strong, just all around, and teams just don't want to play against them, like how IO is. But there are also heroes that you'll see creep up in there, and you're like, why did they ban that? And they go, oh, because they're looking to pick this hero. Again, it's like the Razor Viper thing. If you want the Nyx, and that's core part of your lineup, maybe you ban the Razor where you otherwise wouldn't. And I think learning those kind of hero relationships, and then as you're watching games, paying attention to how certain one-on-one matchups go or how a tri-lane does against another tri-lane really helps improve your understanding of, can we lose this right now? Can we lose the whole map and still try and come back and win the game?
Yeah, I can tell you, as our theoretical mid player of Team Dota by Candlelight, watching so many pro games, and more recently when I watch, I do try to focus on the middle role, and I try to watch the matchups, and it's really, at least just already, I know during our draft who I want to go, like you said, the matchups, what's strong against what. I know if they first pick OD, I'm like, we gotta go, give me Razor right now, that's what I want to go with, like, Don's being like, well, I like Queen of Pain, so I'm just going to pick... you've really got to try... I mean, yes, you can't just pick a matchup and hope that it wins. You have to also kind of build a team that makes sense in some regard. But it definitely... Just the matchups you alone, especially if you know, personally, all you viewers, if you know you like a certain role, and you're trying to focus on just improving, like, as a carry or as a support, knowing and watching these games absolutely helps you because you can see the synergies. Let's say you love playing support. You watch a pro game, you see Naga Siren, Spirit Breaker, and Lifestealer, and you're like, holy crap, all of that really worked well together, and I would have never thought about that. So now with your friends, you can try these kind of support combinations, Naga plus Spirit Breaker, or you know what I mean? It's just a lot more that you can think outside the box with or really focus on trying, and especially seeing the way pros build those skill-wise and item-wise is just another, icing on the cake.
Yeah, I mean, two big I think examples of this for me, when Lone Druid was like in full swing, and I was kind of messing around with a lot of the micro heroes. I'm like, I like Lone Druid. I really want to give him a try, and he's obviously a great hero. And just one game in particular, I remember watching a Lone Druid built the Poor Man Shield, and I was like, why? What? Why would you do this? And he kept it on the bear too. Is probably the important thing. So you have 6 agility on the bear, who doesn't benefit from stats. Why is he doing this? And it's because you get the 100% block chance against incoming damage. And he was using the bear a lot to get behind the tower, to pull creep waves out, taking a lot of damage from the supports, a lot of auto attack hits, but they weren't adding up to a ton of damage because of the Poor Man Shield. And another great example of the Poor Man Shield, and something that's really relevant, is Troll Warlord. That's actually an item that when Troll goes mid, he winds up picking up, and then he'll get pulled some extra items. And you might go, that's kind of weird. No other heroes really pick this. Why are they doing that? Well, when you're Troll Warlord and you're running up in the middle of things so you can hit ranged heroes with whirling axes, you're going to wind up pulling aggro from the creeps. You're going to wind up catching a couple auto attacks on the way out. And I think that's a great way to mitigate a lot of that damage when you're playing the Troll Warlord. And those are kind of things that if you're just watching the stream, they may not be the biggest things for commentators to talk about. They may not be the most exciting things to talk about. But those little things, I think, really make a huge difference for learning individual heroes and individual roles.
One thing they never focus on is skill build, ever. They always
rare.
kind of have more or less an assumed the way they're going to carry out their skill builds. But as even a new player, or even as a semi-experienced player, there's so many variables or options or different ways in the game. I mean, yeah, there's certain heroes, right, you're going to build the same exact way no matter what, because it's very obvious. But
Lone Druid, rabid stats.
Rabid stats.
Obvious.
Very obvious. I mean, why would you not want to do that? I mean, the bear is really overrated. It really is. But, like, for example, Mirana. There's a very great example of how skill build makes the world of a difference depending on your lane, your situation, all of those things. So I just love it also to get into these games just so you can focus or go click around on the different heroes and be like, oh, okay, at level 3 they have 1 in Q and 2 in W. Well, that seems weird, but I understand now, and like you kind of get the full picture. So, skill builds, one of the most underrated things, but definitely could be one of the most important things, and I think a great thing you can pick up on as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've already said this a couple times, but I really enjoy picking arbitrary times or even taking, okay, this just happened, so I'm going to pause the game and just look around, and really, if you can just every 5-10 minutes just take sort of a state of the game pause and say, this is what's happening right now, this is what people have, what team do I think is winning, do I think they're doing the right thing, what could this team be doing better? And if you keep doing that, you start doing that enough, then in the flow of the game that you're playing, you'll be able to sort of come up with those ideas and come up with what you want to do.
Do these supports have TP scrolls at this point in the game?
No.
That's another great thing, and I think you mentioned in one of your note things, but I might just be jumping to it now, but whatever. About like when you're playing your own games and figuring out, oh, okay, well, I'm getting ganked at my tier 1 tower by 3 people. Why are none of my allies TPing in to help me? And a great thing to see that kind of transposed from pro games as well. Would they have support in that situation, or are they around the map instead gaining resources that are more worthwhile in their case?
Yes, I did a poor job, perhaps, of sort of introducing the idea of the series, but we're going to try and break it down sort of into different roles and item questions and all this kind of stuff. But I think that's like a really great thing to just sort of to go through these sort of questions of, when are certain heroes doing certain things, when are certain roles actually rotating. I mean, I think I sort of had I wrote down 4 or 5 sort of question things of, I feel like people say all the time in games, why isn't mid ganking? Why did no one TP to help me? Why are we letting this tower go and not defending it? The TP one is pretty great. Just right off the bat, I mean, if you find a game where people are TPing around, look at what they get out of it, and then look at how the graphs react to that. If 2 people teleport in to save Bounty Hunter from dying, are they really getting a whole lot out of that? Is that worth not only the money to TP, but now you have 3 heroes in a lane soaking up experience, or you have to run those 2 heroes back to the lane they were just at? Is that really worth it? Are there heroes you do have to defend? And I think that's, again, part of this thing of seeing how these individual pieces really wind up functioning throughout the course of the game, and not just taking it as this whole piece, looking at just how certain parts of it function as the game goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much you need to realize about the situations, and I mean, we all like if we're in a game with friends or something, and we get ganked, and no one likes to die. I mean,
I
let's
do.
be clear. Well, besides BLM, most people do not like to die in these games. You like to live forever. You like to get all the kills and no assists, just all the kills, and these don't happen in normal games. It's generally a lot of dives, but especially if you're first to play a suicide or mid lane, and you get smoke ganked and all these people are in your lane, and you die and no one comes to help you. The general reactions, you're ticked off because you're like, oh look, everyone's in my lane. What? And then like you'll say a stupid comment. I'm guilty as charged of. Oh, you guys better push that, or what are you guys doing? Oh, you guys, it's like you even just say the comment without even looking. You're just like, I hope you guys are gonna do something over that, and then you move your camera up and you see they're taking the tier 1 towers. Like, well, good. Well, I'm glad you're doing that. Then, thanks. It's just like, it's a natural reaction to get pissed off when you die, but you've got to take it full circle. And like I think a main point that we're probably gonna stress over and over is your team benefiting the most from the situation? Are they, as a whole, gaining more than what they would have to sacrifice to, I guess in this particular case, assist you in that dive or something?
Yeah, I mean, and just sort of another anecdote, playing a game where one of our friends was an OD, and he wound up trying to gank a couple times, and one of the times I was Skywrath Mage, and I accidentally perfectly timed a concussive shot, and it's not the fastest projectile. It's sort of hard to time, but anyway, threaded it in between the sort of OD wombo combo, and wound up taking the kill. And so all this moving around that OD is doing, some of the ganks didn't work out. They didn't get the kills. I accidentally got the one. This hero that's actually really item dependent, really requires snowballing, is now wasting a lot of this time trying to move between lanes and make stuff happen. And that's kind of to go to the, why isn't mid ganking? Well, some mid heroes aren't built to gank. They're not supposed to. Why Storm Spirit pre-level 5, why isn't he ganking? I mean, that obviously doesn't make any sense, right? And so that's really where looking at these sort of things is really important. I think that's something you sort of have to take into consideration. Even in, the pub games, you might find situations where you're, getting your level 3 Storm Spirit gank, but you can sort of take and go, okay, well, they have, a Queen of Pain middle, maybe we can expect some help. So maybe I can pick this certain way off of what they're likely to do. And even if they don't, you can see the effects of that and sort of add that to your game knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the middle ganking thing, because that, obviously, like I said, I've kind of been focused on middle, and I've been accused countless times of not ganking enough or not moving around enough, and it's so true that, especially on the hero you're going to pick, like for example, Dragon Knight, he's going to farm all day mid. He's going to push that tier 1 town. He's not going to gank. He can. Yes, he has a stun. Just because you have a stun does not mean you should gank. It completely depends on what you are. I've played Queen of Pain games where it just was not worth my time to try to move around. Either the lanes were too pushed, that just wasn't a good situation, or I didn't have rune control. I mean, there's so many factors where you can't just sit in a side lane, especially if you're playing in the game. You're not watching the other lanes intently, so you don't know how the matchup's going or what's happening unless communication's completely, opaque.
Priority 1 kind of thing.
Not opaque. That's, I think, the opposite word I want. But either way, the opposite of opaque. Lucid? Forget it. It doesn't matter.
Transparent.
Transparent. That's
still
probably
not
the
good.
greatest one.
That's
but let's
still not
just
a good
use
word
it because
choice.
it's better than opaque. But yeah, I mean, you can't just say, "Oh, where's my middle?" You can't. You have to be either 100% in communication, in sync with them, or you have to understand what the matchup is and then kind of work it yourself. And if let's say your team has a mid like a Dragon Knight, well then don't pick a lane assuming that there's going to be movement. Pick your lane, maybe pick a stronger lane then. Especially if you're in a pub. Get a strong lane, be able to hold your own, and that way you don't have to depend on this guy moving.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll finish going through my nice little set of questions here. The other one that I sort of like and have to explain every once in a while is, why didn't they defend the tier 1. Like, why are they just letting it fall? And that's one where, I think you wind up going between... If you're playing against an Enchantress or a Chen, why aren't they defending? Well, because they're going to get... You're just sort of slowing it down, and if you have somebody teleporting in every 2 minutes to try and stop a Chen gank, then you're just wasting so much money on scrolls to try and defend a tower that's going to go down eventually anyway. And then you also, if you're running one of those suicide solo heroes that either is just getting punished in the lane because it can be aggressive on them, or they have to even go into the jungle because it's just safer there, once that tower goes down, you actually have a lot more space. And there are even times where, we've picked teams that are good at taking early towers. We take early towers, and then we don't take advantage of the situation. We don't look to try and place aggressive wards so if someone goes up to a certain point, you can punish them for it, wind up just backing off, letting them have all that space still. So it didn't even really matter except for the gold advantage that you took that tower.
There's been, not many, but there's definitely been games I've watched, especially professional, where they've gone incredibly heavy push, and they've taken the tier 1 in 2 or 3 minutes, and then they go and they take tier 2 within 7 minutes. But then, for some reason, I don't know what the other team had or whatever, but they can't break the tier 3. And then now there's this whole lane they've already pushed, and yeah, they got some nice bonus gold up front, but that's essentially a lane that they can't do anything. No more farm is going to come from them for that lane. So now they have to try to push the rest of the map, whereas that team now has absolute free control of that lane. And it's like, it's not necessarily the greatest idea when you know your team, or you think you know your team, is weaker at that stage of the game. And that's where a judgment call really comes in. And the whole team really has to be in sync. Because if one player thinks you guys have it, and the other 4 don't, and that one player goes in, and now you're maybe chasing him because you want to protect him, you're going to flop out on it, and you have to be all on the same page. So that's obviously where communication is very important.
Yeah, and I mean, this sort of works into some of our previous points, right? I mean, if they're getting that 3-minute tower, then there's more than 2 people there, more than likely. They're sending a third person in to split the gold amongst themselves. They might just be auto-attacking the creeps to get the kills and might not be focused on the last hitting, wasting gold, sharing experience. If you're not defending that, then you're spread out more across the map. And these are times when you're watching games, you look and say, was that worth it to get that gold advantage? Maybe the gold they get from the tower is almost balanced out by what they're able to farm elsewhere, and I think that's why it's important to pay attention to those things when they happen in games, so you sort of build that knowledge up and understand it. The last big thing is I have my notes right here. AM is off in the woods picking tulips.
Oh yes,
go.
Yeah, he really is quite the botanist. He really enjoys his varieties of flowers, but I'm really impressed in my knowledge of that word. But yeah, there's definitely aspects like that where if you have a certain hero and he's deciding to just stay in the jungle while you're pushing his 4 in a different lane, you have to be aware of that. Definitely could be the strongest move of your team at that stage. It's not necessarily vital for all 5 to be together if you're making a push. There's definitely cases also with heroes like Nature's Prophet where he's not going to be with the team because it's just more strategic to have him in a separate lane or doing something else. Now, granted, there are also those cases where it's like a Queen of Pain is farming the jungle while your team's pushing or something. Yeah, that might not be the same case, because she would probably fare a lot better in that team fight situation, whereas Animage, who just got a Battle Fury, should be killing stacks of creeps. Stacks on stacks on stacks. That's how it should go.
Yes, and I mean, I think if I can pre-name the sort of informational episode where we go over carries, it's a fight or flight thing. Some heroes are built to fight, some are built to stay away and try and get a certain set of items together before they engage. And
some
then, of course,
have abilities that literally help them run away.
Yeah. So I think that's like another big one where going through and sort of having these questions in mind even as you're watching the game. Okay, this is what they picked. They have a Phantom Lancer. How do they use him? What items does a Phantom Lancer go when he actually has to fight early? Which ones does he go when he is nowhere near anything? And that, again, is just where you sort of build up this game knowledge. You can go, oh crap, I'm Phantom Lancer. Do I have the space to farm? Yes, I'm going to build this way. No, I have to fight. So this is what I have to build.
Yeah, and I was talking about Mirana before with the skill build. Anti-Mage is another beautiful example of a hero that normally I don't put beautiful and Anti-Mage in the same sentence, but it happens. Where his skill build can differ so much based on the case of the game. I mean, there's I remember the TI2 they call it the China build, where he go 1 point in each of his abilities, then goes stats up until about level 8 or 9. And that way, right when he hits Battle Fury, he was very strong with health and auto attack damage and could clear that jungle incredibly quick, get those levels, and then get his other abilities at that point. And there's other points where you max out Q instead, and you're trying to mana burn whoever's in that lane with you. And I mean, there's just definitely so many variations, and that's why I think it's not only important to watch these games, but multiple games, different games, not just, oh, I've watched one series or I've watched this one team play it, I'm good to go. No, different teams playing it also is great to see why there's a variety, why there's a difference.
Yeah, I agree, and I mean that's nice too. For even if you're watching a lot of different teams, you get to see different sets of heroes too, right? Because if you're watching Kaipi games, you're gonna see Spear Breaker, and that's awesome, and I love it. And of course, for a while there, if you were watching Alliance games, you're going to see Phantom Assassin just rolling kids, and you get to see some beautiful Chem play by Aki and different stuff like this. But the one other thing that I think is really interesting, it's not. I feel like I don't see it as much now, but especially when you looked at how going back to Day 9 and you looked at StarCraft 2, and kind of one of the major things you looked out for was like timing attacks, and how certain things were just like you hit a point where it was just go. As soon as you got a certain unit out, as soon as you got 3 Colossi, you go and you just try and win, and your whole build is about getting these items together. And so I think that's another great thing to even look out for is what happens when items are getting completed, what time are items getting completed, because it's sort of one of those things too where you look at OD and you go, OD mech, that's kind of weird, right? Like there's not a ton of int on that item. Why is the snowball hero auto attacker late game heavy big int items getting a mech? Why is Anti-Mage skipping his Battle Fury getting Yasha first? Why are we getting drums on our Phantom Lancer first? Those kind of things. And what happens when those items are completed? Do the teams go as soon as they finish the mech, or do they sit and wait? Does Shadow Fiend start going crazy as soon as he finishes BKB, or does he sit and wait? And how does that work out in the game? Those sort of things.
Absolutely. Another great thing to time out is the duration, or how long it takes to get certain items. For example, Hand of Midas, probably one of the most staple things of how long it takes to get Nature's Prophet. I know we all play that hero so much, and definitely I think it's even recommended to get Hand of Midas as like your first item. It's very, very typical. And not every game, but most of them you will. And so timing that, figuring out how long it really takes you to get there is really important. I think for Anti-Mage or any hero that gets Battle Fury, if you know he's building that and that's your game plan, then as a support, timing out to, okay, how long is it going to take? Is it going to take 15 or 16 minutes? Okay, at what point do I really need to start trying to stack jungle creeps to get 2 or 3 stacks and all these things? That way he can just, as soon as you get that Battle Fury, we're efficient. He's already going to go up about 1,500 gold throughout the whole map if we have enough stacks. What point is it to, or what's the point I should start stacking Ancients when he's strong enough to be able to do those? I mean, there's so many aspects around the map that timing can really impact if you can just watch enough and play enough with that in mind. To go beyond just, oh, it's a pub, I'm going to try to do a little more than that and figure this out.
That's another thing too. To be self-critical, I know for a really long time I was guilty of, as soon as I started watching games professionally, you get this sort of mantra of, well, Juggernaut gets picked now, so he's good. And Juggernaut builds Vanguard first and runs around the map and kills everybody, and every tower's dead in 20 minutes. That's how you play Juggernaut. I was the most anti-Battle Fury Juggernaut person ever for the longest time because I just hated it because he would go and farm. It's like, but you got Ward and you got Magic Community of all this crazy stuff, and it's really nice to just, as you're building up these sort of separate things, be able to put them together into your own sort of play. I mean, one of my favorite personal things was I was playing Lone Druid, I was playing against a Phantom Lancer, and I'm like, Maelstrom's not going to be enough. I need something else. I don't want to build Radiance because they can do a lot of damage to me. And so what I wound up finally doing was building a Battle Fury on my bear, and it's actually, I mean, it's been done before. Like, I didn't invent it or anything. It was something that had some professional precedent, which I wasn't aware of at the time. But I'm like, this feels awful and wrong, and like someone just rolled over in their grave. Like, someone's very ashamed of me all of a sudden. But it worked out. It actually was probably the best thing that I could have built in that game. It's not, what Dendy did game 2 of such and such a tournament, but it's understanding what those items do and putting that together.
I'm glad you had a reasonable application for that story, but that story to you is like be done story with Rubik and RP stealing. It's just one of those arm ringers that's going to be. But hey, you applied it directly. And
I did.
What? I'm really.
It wasn't just
that you did.
to stroke.
It
my
wasn't
ego.
just to stroke the EP. I mean, it's nice to do that every now and then. I mean, that reminds me of a time where I went 23-1 as Quap, but I mean that. I don't know how that relates to at all what we were talking about, but it just reminds me of that time I went 23-1.
We're just laying down facts, man. Just
with my new Navi Quap skin, which is so beautiful.
There you go.
And that really applies to what we're talking about. Because,
it does. It does.
You've got to watch the pros, see what skins they're using on their heroes, and really you can apply that to your skins. And it's going to make you... Oh, absolutely. It increases your effectiveness 100% at least.
I mean, yeah, you get the skin with the smaller sword. It swings faster. You last hit timing better.
Have you seen Dendy win a Pudge game without the overalls on Pudge? Don't think so. So, I mean, I'm just saying facts.
Just laying down the facts. Other things I think are really interesting. What kind of stuff... I'll ask you the question and then give you some time to think about it, because I'm nice like that. What kind of stuff have you sort of, I guess, picked up from watching games differently? Because I know, obviously, I've actually started buying a lot of tickets recently. I have the Star Ladder Season 7 ticket, which we'll come back to that one. I am just so giddy that I have that one. I've really enjoyed it. But what kind of stuff have you sort of picked up on from watching games in this capacity? Because I know for me, one of the interesting ones was just how the map lines up splitting up. The number of games where sort of Radiant takes left half and Dire takes right half, and both teams are sort of happy to be in each other's jungle, which is just sort of like, it was just weird to me. Like, I never really thought of splitting it that way. You always go, okay, well, here's where all of our towers were, so let's stick to our half of the map. Instead, it's, well, let's be in their jungle, because if we're all there, then we can, if we find them, we kill them. We get to potentially steal their farm, and what do we care if they're in our jungle? If there's no tower that's being threatened, whatever. We can just take this aggressive posture, and it doesn't really hurt us. That's, I think, one of the more recent ones that I've come across. I mean, what kind of stuff have you really benefited from seeing?
Well, I've already kind of briefly said about, since I play middle, I like to watch middle lineups, but middle picks and such. But something I've really, and this kind of hasn't been necessarily the most recent of things, but when I started especially watching pro games and doing it more in depth, ward placements that are just beyond your typical
Standard
6 spots that everyone knows in the whole game, especially warding the jungle. Blocking neutral camps with where to put those wards. There's so many nice little spots to put it, and just around the map in general, places that give great vision. In fact, there was a Reddit post, although I can't remember it. I wish I could. I wish I could link it for our.
This is Skywrath Mage placing the wards. I remember what you're talking about. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and it showed these spots that you just would have no idea would give all that vision, and be in these spots that no one would counter ward because you wouldn't even think about that. So going outside the box there, as well as smoke ganking. I really got a whole new perspective from watching pro games about, even at level 1, people smoke ganking. Just doing these things that are so different. I know personally, when we play with our friends, when I say we, are guilty of not moving around as much with our supports. We kind of like to focus up our tri-lane, and maybe that's just our play style, that's fine. But I know most pubs definitely go that way as well, but you can catch especially in pubs, people off guard in middle and different lanes with just a nice little smoke, because they'll have their ward in the river and they'll think they're invincible because they can see everything. But little do they know, a smoke goes right past that, and now they're caught at level 2 with 2 stuns from the supports from bottom lane. And I mean, it's just something like smoke adds a whole other element that pros absolutely take advantage of, but I think us lesser folk could really gain a lot more from watching that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's an interesting item because it's one of these things that just, I feel like to me when I first started watching competitive Dota, it was just like, this is a thing that people decide to do sometimes. But in sort of watching it more and more, you sort of go, okay, well, when are they deciding to smoke? And this is another thing where when you don't have the talking and you're like the commentating and the cameras being moved for you really start to pay attention to what is the state of the game when the team decides, oh crap, we should smoke and try and gank their jungle? Is it we're really far behind and we need to just catch somebody, we need to just get some kind of advantage? What do they do after the smoke gank? If they're successful, they try and do a Roshan? Do they try and do that? Do they try and push with it? What kind of routes are they taking with the smoke? Where are they trying to really find the advantage? Where are they expecting the advantage to be? I think those are when you see something happen and you really just stop to think about everything that's going on around it and how those things fit against one another, you really build up that greater game sense and get an idea of just sort of what the ebb and the flow should be. And then that even sort of, I think, gives you another advantage when you play against other people who know that, because then you can sort of try and break that intelligently, you know. They might expect us to be there. That's sort of the Alliance Roche bait. Like, greatest ever, right? Pick the perfect Roche team, and then you smoke and go around because you know the other team expects you to do Roche. Those sorts of things. So obviously that might be a little beyond us, but really just in basic ways, if you expect the other team to do something and they do something different, that they sort of have an innate advantage there.
Exactly. Predictability is obviously a big factor in that. So I'm I don't know. It's all very intriguing to me. That brought me back when you were saying you were seeing smoke. When I remember seeing that smoke for the very first time in the first international, and just seeing 4 heroes go invisible and running around the map, I'm like, what is this item? What is going on? I'm
this
like,
is DOP.
I'm like, this item must cost like 1,000 gold. He's like, no, it's 100. I'm like, what? 100 gold for your whole team to go invisible? What is happening? And then finally, it was figured out that when you approach them, you get close. You lose the invisibility. But I was just like, how is this possible? Like, this is just the most imbalanced item that Ice Frog has ever come up with. If techies could get it, then game over. I don't even understand at that point. Yeah.
I think the only other like really big thing that I wanted to talk about was just like casters that I really like actually having the audio on for, and then people where I listen to the Russian instead, because that actually adds more to the game for me. And that
is gonna be a bashing. This is gonna be a bashing.
It's not bashing. I'm just saying that I really appreciate LD and his crew and Lumi. I think they do a really great job of both telling you the story and telling you about important things that are happening. So I really enjoy listening to their commentary while free cameraing it up. Mm-hmm. But like I was saying, as far as tournaments go, I've really been enjoying Starladder Season 7. I've had previous Starladder tickets. I think they're really great too, because I actually discover a new team that I actually really like. Menace, if you've been following them. Fnatic is actually a team that I feel like I never get to watch anymore, but they have just been all over the place in the Starladder. Empire as well, getting to see a lot of them. And even some of the smaller squads like Power Rangers, who have kind of been around for a while and sort of in some of these off tournaments, getting to see them. Poseidon in the Starladder. So it's been a really great ticket. I've seen a lot of games that have been really enjoyable, a lot of picks that have been really random, and I listen to the Russian. Not gonna lie.
There's some casters out there, and it's really, you can tell the difference between game knowledge with their color commentators themselves. And I mean, I think it's good to a point to have that hype caster to go with the color commentator, but and you kind of nail it on the head. I think that's why Beyond the Summit's a lot of people's favorite system as well, just because uh, of both Lumi and LD. Not only do they have the great game knowledge, but they're both also really great at casting the game. And it's why time and time again they get to do the final grand finals, because they're just so good at what they do. I mean, if some of these other casters, and I'm sure they all put in tons of time, they obviously do, and but you watch so many games and you wonder, after doing this so many games, how are you not, getting to closer level? They must be just doing overtime. Like I'm just still shocked at how much information they can present while doing a great job at keeping me excited and interested in all these fights. It's definitely something to commend them for. Now, I still am a good fan of Toby. I love his stuff. I wish he could bone up on his knowledge.
Whoa, now.
A little bit more.
PG. Keep it PG.
I wish he could increase his knowledge capacity.
Girth.
Okay. So you get to say that, but I can't. Okay.
Correct.
But but yeah, I mean, these other people, and I'm with you. Actually, I love to see any kind of Asian caster, please. I've never been so excited to watch a battle in my life, or even a smoke in level 1 jungle, in the enemy's jungle. I've never been so excited for that kind of action as when I've watched a Korean stream. So yeah, believe me.
And on top of that, if you ever get to listen to Winter commentate a game, he is so smart.
Oh,
Winter's
great.
To listen to a lot of the captains and stuff is really great, just because obviously they have that game knowledge, which is so important.
Is it always winter over there or something? Because there's how many players have
ice,
winter?
Winter. Maybe that's it.
No, there's more. There's Chuan.
That's probably.
I think it's Chinese for
Frosty.
Stay frosty, friends. Did you hear about the more roster changes? I don't really want to drop it too much on this episode, but CSMJ's on Tong Fu. Woo! Medusa's is coming. I'm telling you, he's gonna break it out one of these days. It's coming. Sorry, that was off topic, but
and
believe.
Believe.
But I think
Captain's mode.
I think we did a great job all around. Well, to pat myself on the back, I think we did a great job. But
I hardly even knew you breathed, so I think you did great.
Thank you. I'm going to take a bow. Don't worry. I will.
I will say I have to shout out to Jay, because I know all week he was just practicing his meditating, slowing down the heart rate. He took 3 breaths this episode. I counted. And all the credit to you, sir, for your dedication to the DoD quality.
Thank you. And I have to, because I said we'd do it last week, although I believe this guy may have posted just to troll me, I said I would give shouts to all the YouTube commenters, and this week we had one, and it's a guy. Well, maybe. I think it's a guy who I believe is Russian, and they said the first, so he's the first comment. He's the only comment. And if I can translate this to English letters, I'm going to say his name is Satanikin Namkun. So thank you for posting.
I don't know what just happened, but
that's how you translate.
The unfortunate thing is that if it was Russian letters to English letters, you would still not get it because of Pavost.
Very true.
Xbox. Why don't they call him Xbox? Was that his other name back in Dota 1? Was he a Vost, and now they call him Xbox? No, supposed to.
Srillik? Fuzzbug is telling us it's Srillik is the person's name. So thank you, Srillik, and thank you, Fuzzbug, for the quick translation. I guess Google can help. I don't know. I never tried to do it. The alphabet's called Krillik. Okay, I feel retarded. Can I just stop talking about him for now? Sorry, we're done.
Shout
with
out
that.
to all the Ruskies.
Yes,
there you go.
Shout just the whole area. Just
all of Russia.
I love you all. Thank you.
You're great.
You all did that comment together. Thank you very much.
Let's just harass Valve until they put out Legion Commander. Unless you really want our next installment of this series, which I hope you guys do. Of course, you can leave any comments, anything that you'd like us to focus on. Like I said, we're going to be doing an episode on item choices, on different roles, and the way that different heroes function in those roles. So if there's anything else you guys want us to talk about, please feel free, drop us some comments. But if you really do want Legion Commander, and I do, just harass Volvo until they cave and give us a new hero. So until then, enjoy Legion Commander when she comes out, and we will see you guys next